This programme proudly brought to you by Coles, Woolworths, Target, Bunnings Warehouse, Qantas, Commonwealth Bank, Rebel Sport, Super Cheap Auto, Domino's Pizza, the ABC, Sunglass Hut, Micallef, Maid Establishment and Rockpool Dining. Market leaders in staff underpayment.
Thank you very much. Now, Parliament wasn't sitting last week. They've been sitting for 2 weeks and they had to get up and move around or they get thrombosis. But that didn't mean they weren't doing anything. Yes, Holden had closed down and 600 people had lost their jobs, but the PM himself opened the Australian Space Agency, which will create 20 jobs. So, kind of balances out. Plus, the PM has said that the government is looking to grow that to 20,000 jobs by 2030 in a sector worth $12 billion, which he believes will exceed $1 trillion by 2040. And it's good to have targets, isn't it? One for jobs by 2030, one for value by 2040. Can't quite commit to one for zero emissions by 2050, but that's OK, because by then it'll be too late anyway and we'll all be dead. But until then, Holden workers can be retrained in astrophysics and space aeronautics and get back to work. I'm sure with a few minor alterations, the Holden Gemini diesel could easily make it into space if you really gun the engine. I think the takeaway, though, is jobs. As the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, said after he cut the ribbon.
As exciting as space is, it's about the jobs in space that really matters.
Great, more jobs going offshore. The other great thing that got done, because nothing was happening in Parliament last week, was that the ABC got to go to Canberra and make its case for an increase in its budget. Now that was Monday last week, and we haven't heard anything unless you count this badly framed selfie of the PM with Ida Buttrose that Scott tweeted. Now, as you know from our incessant whinging about it, the ABC are subject to an $83.7 million budget freeze, and there are going to be job losses here. And sadly, this has started already, and it's a real pity because, as well as essential things like the ABC Morris dances and the annual burning of the ABC Wicker Man, which we do to ensure good ratings, we've also had to get rid of our page program here at the ABC. Annabelle Crabb and I got our start here as pages, looking after the audience on This Day Tonight back in the 70s. Just doing sort of general things like getting Bill Peach's heroin. No. That sort of thing. Anyway, just to show that we here at the ABC are doing our best to live within our means while giving back to this country, we've replaced our sacked pages with coal miners, helping them transition from their current employment, mining, which will not exist in a few years, to jobs which will last forever here in the free-to-air television industry. And they've done a pretty good job tonight, haven't they, ladies and gentlemen? We should give them thanks very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your service. Now, coming up later, we ask, is this dam a metaphor for the National Party's capacity to contain Barnaby Joyce's leadership ambition? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is. Also, we talk to the man who had a needle lodged in his mouth after biting into a sewing kit. But right now, it's over to Mad as Hell climate war correspondent Lois Price. Lois, what do you think of Labor setting a target of zero net emissions by 2050?
Well, Shaun, from my position high in the sky, I think a better target for Labor would be to win an election by 2050.
Well, the government have, of course, been embroiled in these sports rorts. Have they set a target?
They've set a target of zero net emissions of guilt, Shaun.
Of course, Labor haven't costed their commitment, just as they didn't during the election campaign, leading the Prime Minister to call Anthony Albanese Bill Shorten 2.0.
Yeah, so the challenge there is to see if Albo can reduce that to Bill Shorten 1.5 by 2050. Is your back stiff? Are your feet sore? Do your knees swell and give off a foul odour? You must be the miserable git I met on Tinder. Either way, let any sluts shed to acupuncture purport to help with its renowned random and unscientific insertion injection of previously hygienic needles into parts of your body not recommended for this treatment. When you need a prick, call any slump. I'm Lois Price for Mad as Hell.
Thanks very much, Lois. Now, in an effort to keep our budget surplus just in case it's needed, Social Services Minister Anne Ruston has announced... Sorry, that's a mistake, isn't it? That's Christopher Pyne. Anne Ruston looks nothing like Christopher Pyne. OK, maybe a bit. Anyway, Anne has announced a crackdown on payments to welfare recipients, saying the government wants to make sure Australians get the financial support that they are eligible for, no less and no more. Spokesperson for Senator Ruston, Katarina Rott. I don't want to dob anybody in, but if you want to get back any ineligible payments, why not get the debt collectors onto the 290 community sports infrastructure grant recipients deemed ineligible for funding by the National Audit Office?
Shaun, that's not Anne's department. What Anne's focused on right now is getting people off welfare and into jobs.
Well, most people are barely on it anyway to begin with. ACOS says we should raise Newstart by $95 a week.
Well, I wish they'd make up their mind. 2 years ago, they were saying we should raise it by $75.
Yeah, which you also ignored. In fact, Newstart hasn't increased in any real sense since 1994.
Well, Shaun, this isn't about how little money these people are receiving. This is about how little money these people are eligible to receive. If they're not eligible, we want it back, no matter how small it is, so we can put it to good use rebuilding our surplus, just like we're doing with that $1.6 billion in critical unspent NDIS funding.
Yeah, well, why not spend that money on other disability services?
That's not Anne's department, Shaun. That's a question for whoever the Minister for Health is.
Greg Hunt.
I wouldn't like to say. Anne is focused on winning over Senate support for her Newstart drug test trial, in which, in a non-judgmental way, we collect the urine, saliva and hair of dole bludgers for analysis. We put them on a cashless card, get them off drugs and teach them income management skills.
Look, if you can support a drug habit on $35 a day, I'd say you're already pretty good at managing your money. And as for giving urine, saliva and hair samples, how would you feel about doing that?
What, now?
No. And why won't you tell us the cost of these urine, saliva and hair tests?
Shaun, I think that's more a question for the Minister for Social Services.
Who is Anne Ruston?
Well, I wouldn't like to say.
Thank you, Katarina Rott. Of course, it's not just the government who are trying to take away your money. Even if you are gainfully employed, there's a good chance you're not receiving what you're eligible for, particularly if you're working for supermarket giants like Coles and Woolworths. Gemma Peedy from Coles and Rain Dabrowski from Woolworths, both your organisations are in the frame here. Coles has admitted to underpaying its employees up to $20 million over the past 6 years, while Woolworths is dealing with its own $300 million underpayment scandal.
Woolworths will not be beaten on wage theft, Shaun.
Take-home pay is down with Coles, Shaun.
Well, what steps are your businesses taking to ensure this sort of thing, indeed this very thing, doesn't happen again?
Well, Coles are considering replacing all the humans at the checkout with self-serve scanning machines, which we won't have to pay at all, thus avoiding the problem of underpayment entirely.
Woolies are thinking of doing the same thing too, Shaun, but we're installing a self-serve payroll. Workers can just scan themselves on the way out after a shift, and it's the Woolies guarantee that they'll pay themselves the full amount they're entitled to.
Yeah, we tried that. They kept keying in they were Curtis Stone or avocados.
Can it be that difficult to pay someone the minimum wage?
The award system's very complicated, Shaun. No one can seem to work out how low the minimum wage really is.
Woolies will not be beaten on minimum wages, Shaun.
Same.
Well, maybe the government should make the award system more like the corporate tax code. Businesses seem to be able to work out how to pay as little as possible under the system while still being technically legal.
Hey, Shaun, look at this great offer we have from Coles.
Rude. Well, the government, though, is promising to get tough on what has been described as an underpayment epidemic, the Wuhan-like epicentre of which seems to be Australia's celebrity restaurant industry, with chefs at Heston Blumenthal's restaurant claiming to be underpaid as much as $30,000 a year. And, of course, George Columbaris' restaurants having to pay $7.8 million. Wendell Vestibule, you also claim not to have been paid $30,000 a year and $7.8 million.
Never in my life, Shaun, have I received those amounts. And that's a conservative estimate. I mean, it's probably much more.
How much more do you think?
Well, what's the highest number there is?
Infinity?
Well, I've certainly never received anything even approaching that figure.
Now, you work in a kitchen.
I do.
And you secretly filmed yourself to give people an idea of the conditions.
I did, yes, at great personal risk.
And you brought that in for us to show?
No. I left the tape on my dresser on the way out, so I've accidentally brought in some footage of a dog eating a banana.
Well, let's have a look. Now, Wendell, you don't work for either Heston Blumenthal or George Columbaris.
I do not, but I have seen them on the TV and I could pick them out of a lineup if required.
Well, who do you work for?
I do not work for anyone.
So you're self-employed?
Self-unemployed for many years now.
All right, so this kitchen you work in is...
At my flat.
Why don't you get a job in a proper restaurant?
Oh, most are prejudiced against me because of how I am.
And how are you?
Well, thank you. Yourself?
No, I mean, what is it about you that makes restaurants not want to employ you?
Oh, I'm a terrible cook. Look at this bloody mess I prepared earlier.
Why, Wendell, that's one of the finest crock and bushes I've ever seen in my life.
Yes, but it's meant to be a grilled cheese sandwich.
And to take us to the break, Harry and Meghan have left the royal family and will no longer use the word royal in their brand. Well, who will look after them? How will they live? Will they become a burden to society instead of earning their way in the world like Harry's alleged father and inbred cousins before him? The Clockwork Movement Dance Ensemble has more.
It's a lesson we could learn. Royal trapping should be spurned. If they can do it, then we can become Canadian Republican. Come the revolution!
Enid, how would you like to prepare a secret dirt file on our PM for Peter Dutton?
Enid's working from home today, boss.
Jesus. What do you mean Enid's in the toilet?
She has volcanic diarrhea, if you must know. Picked up a parasite in Hawaii. Not only did he steal her purse in the morning, he had dysentery. Is that... Where the heck did you get Enid's dress?
Tosh's character misunderstood me when I asked him to get me her address. But that doesn't matter. What matters is will you say yes?
Icarus, can you move to the left a little, please? I can still see my daughters playing. Why does Peter Dutton want us to dig up dirt on the PM? Surely he can just watch the last 3 months of his press conferences on ABC iView.
Peter Dutton is planning a leadership spill. And he doesn't want any leaks. Mind you, I don't know why he cares what people think. Normally, it's water off it. Duck's back. Excellent. Now that you're all here, I want to congratulate all of you on the hard work that all of you have put into this meticulously researched dirt file on the PM. I had no idea he was once part of one of the most hated organisations in the world, Tourism Australia.
But we're not all here, Chief. Enid has an RDO.
That's why I'm dressed as her, so we can all appear to be here to present this secret report to Peter Dutton's media liaison, the Emperor Palpatine.
Thank you, Earthlings. Armed with this information, I shall now go and crunch the numbers to determine who of my colleagues will support my dreadlord and see him rightfully restored as ruler of the Galactic Empire.
But Australia's a federation of states, you goddamn son of a bitch.
Tosh's character is right.
My character has a name. See? Miller.
We got this, Tosh.
Enid Swink, returning back shortly.
Welcome back. Well, this week is, of course, Mad as Hell Intimacy Week, and... Yes, I know. And with a quick update as to what our contestants can expect later on in the show, let's cross live to the birthing room. Stephen.
Thanks, Shaun. Well, as you can see, Genevieve is centimetres away from giving birth to her and hopefully Roy's love child, conceived during last week's drunken orgy. Genevieve, you must be hoping the paternity test doesn't reveal the father is one of the 12 other men you had sex with that night, or you'll miss out on the $39 lube and edible underpant basket, courtesy of Father Kinky's Perv Dungeon. Genevieve, please, this is a family show. Back to you, Shaun.
Yes, disgusting. Thank you very much, Stephen. Well, the commemoration of Captain Cook's arrival in Australia is a divisive one. The Greens say it should be scrapped, which is odd because you think they want it recycled. Pauline Hanson, though, says that this is...
absolute rubbish again from the Greens, you know. What did they want to sponge history?
Now, two things. Firstly, if it is rubbish, it should be separated. And secondly, what is a sponge history? And do any of us really want it? Well, I guess we'll find out on Sunday when the ABC presents Australia, a sponge history at 9:30. Also on iView, if you forget or can't be bothered watching it in the first place. Speaking of racism, the coronavirus, is all the misinformation wrong? Amid the attack and the fear and the hysteria and the people getting sick, one lone voice is defending it. Joining us is Anita Kant. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Can't, Shaun. Dr. Anita Kant.
Anita Kant. Anita, you are a doctor?
That's what they say, Shaun.
And have an Order of Australia?
For now, yes.
And you say the coronavirus is being unfairly demonised?
I do, Shaun. As a deregistered osteopath, I have seen on TV and heard on the radio the health Nazis pile onto this virus, which is just as much right to go on living as the people it's infecting.
Yes, but it's a threat to world health. It's dangerous.
Yeah, but why is it a threat? You know, why is it dangerous? As a self-taught iridologist, I can only imagine how much this microscopic organism, which is tiny, has been provoked, driven too far by a taxi driver or a cruise liner. They find themselves with no option but to be passed from one carrier to another.
Well, they're caught in the middle.
It was the same with the Spanish flu, leprosy and people over 15 years old going on TikTok. You know, it's in their nature to do what they do, and anyone who says otherwise is a PC snowflake. And I say that as an unqualified Crystal Light bed salesperson.
Well, thank you very much, Anita. Anita Kant.
Dr. Anita Kant.
Well, from overseas to overseas now, and seeing Australians on the international stage always makes us feel less inferior than we really are. Lydia Rowlands.
Thanks, Shaun. And this week, LNP MP George Christensen's international flight accidentally overshot the Philippines and flew to London, where he and independent MP Andrew Wilkie unsuccessfully tried to break Julian Assange out of a Belmarsh prison before proposing a prisoner exchange whereby the UK returns Assange to Australia and Australia returns Miriam Margolyes to the UK. Up until recently, Julian Assange had spent 7 years in London's Ecuadorian embassy, while Ms Margolyes had spent more than 3 years on our screens as Aunt Prudence in Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. Surely enough is enough. Back to you, Shaun.
Thank you, Lydia. Of course, Julian's extradition case started on Monday, and I guess at heart it's about not so much the freedom of a man who is being investigated for alleged sex crimes who skipped bail, as about the freedom of that same man to dump material hacked illegally from computers onto the internet with no journalistic context. His legal team have endeavoured to claim asylum in France. We cross now live to our Mad as Hell studios in Paris. Are you there, Pierre?
Merci, Shaun. I am joined by three formidable guests. Small screen goddess and celebrity advocate for Julian Assange, Pamela Anderson. Acclaimed film director and fellow fugitive from justice, Roman Polanski. And our resident expert in Sanctuary and hero of Victor Hugo's Hunchback of Notre Dame Quasimodo. All of whom have agreed to participate in tonight's tete-a-tete.
Tater tot. Yummy.
Roman Polanski, if I can start with you, what's your view on the Assange situation?
Well, of course, I actually went to the effort of being convicted of my sex crime before I sought refuge in France. I think Julian should agree to be investigated by the Swedish police, face charges if necessary, be found guilty, and only then escape justice and live a life being showered with accolades.
Yes, they're the Mexican walking fish, aren't they?
Yes.
Quasimodo, you very famously sought refuge on behalf of Esmeralda, rescuing her moments before her execution. Is that something you would consider doing for Julian?
If a bell rope could be organised for me to slide down,
yes,
I could sweep Julian up in my powerful arms. Could I have some water, please?
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, Pamela, that's very kind of you.
Here you go.
Yeah.
She gave me water. She gave me water!
Yes, all right, don't go on about it.
Pierre, can I just say that this sort of captivity is cruel, and I ask for the immediate release back into the wild of these magnificent creatures. I further request that Vladimir Putin put an end once and for all to the international sale of whale meat. These giants of the deep should not be eaten by any man, no matter how delicious. Unless these demands are met, I shall release a sequel to Barbed Wire.
I thought this was supposed to be about Julian Assange.
Julian Assange?
Yes, surely you've heard of him.
Name rings a bell.
The bells! The bells! The bells!
Back to you, Shaun.
Thank you, Pierre. Time now to hold a mirror up to the TV so it can scream at itself like Caliban with Media Sasquatch. And to prove that at least the mad as hell part of the ABC is not a conservative free zone, here's Time and Tide correspondent for the Oz, Tendril Kindergarten. Shall I get the paddles?
Hello, Shaun. Can I first point out that in 1932 the ABC was officially launched as the Australian Broadcasting Commission by Joseph Lyons, needless to say a Labor Prime Minister, so even then it was biased against the right side of politics.
Sorry, Tendril, look, sorry, this is only a half-hour show. Perhaps we could just confine ourselves with what you've seen on TV in the past week.
To what I've seen on TV in the past week.
Yes.
I think you owe me an apology.
I'm sorry.
Very well. Lashed into my befouled Jason recliner by my female co-owner, I suckled at the cathode teat, but I must be lactose intolerant for...
Sorry, if we could just speed it up just a bit.
Very well. Go. Garbage. Turncoat. Rubbish. Dreadful. Kill me now. Leftist twaddle.
Hang on. Well, Stateless hasn't even been on yet.
I know, but I can tell from the ads. And finally, I loved it.
And to take us to the break, a question from the audience left over from Monday night's Q&A. The audience, that is, not the question. The question's actually ours. These people said they had nowhere to go, so Hamish McDonald said they could sleep here. Anyway, could Burrito Houndstooth make it home, please? Burrito Houndstooth?
Yes, Shaun. If Australia plans to rely on its carryover Kyoto carbon credits to meet its 2030 target under the Paris Climate Agreement, won't we be in a bit of trouble if those doing the calculating take into account the 350 million tonnes of carbon dioxide released into the atmosphere by our bushfires? Or given that the government seems to be blaming arsonists, which would mean that the emissions are human-induced under the Paris Agreement and not, and I quote, from natural causes which are excluded. So to make a long story only slightly less long than it is already, if the bushfires are man-made, then we might have already used up our carbon credits and not have any to rely on in 2030. But if the government admits the fires were due to natural causes, i.e. climate change, then our carbon credits remain untouched.
Yes, but if climate change is man-made, then it's back to being human-induced and we lose the credits again.
Well, either way, we call it even and walk away.
Well, I'm not sure that was a question. What do you think? Send your answers to Was That a Question? Care of your furthest ABC Regional Centre. And you could be in the running to win a Bobcat a mood ring. Super fast to match Bob's volatile temperament. Make sure your press conference with Bob doesn't end in a melee today.
Later on tonight, question time in Parliament, followed by nausea and vomiting.
Well, as you know, I love communism, as do all of us here at the ABC. But as you also know, if you've watched The Irishman, unions are boring. Well, all that is about to change if the Senate crossbench ends up supporting the government's second attempt at passing the Ensuring Integrity Bill, aimed at deregistering unions if they use heavy-handed and sometimes unlawful tactics to intimidate their prey. Panadol mattress.
I'm talking to Bunny Milk, who mans the PA's desk here at Pauline Hanson's One Nation's office, while the PA pops out for an hour or so while she screams away her stress in one of the many beautiful screaming gardens here at Parliament House. Bunny, this is a particularly stressful time at the moment, isn't it? Because of the...
Oh, sorry.
Because of the renewed push to get the union-busting legislation through the Senate.
Very much so. Oh, sorry.
What, if any, pressure is being brought to bear on Pauline Hanson's One Nation's Pauline Hanson to support the bill?
Do I talk now?
Yes.
No, well, none at all. Pauline enjoys a very good relationship with both the Liberal and National Party Senate members. It's a relationship of mutual respect.
Hello, Bunny. I hope we haven't interrupted nothing. Pauline in?
No, she's out giving one of her inarticulate press conferences about nothing.
Oh, that's a pity. We had an appointment, didn't we, Ron?
Yeah, that's right. An appointment.
And who do we have here, Bunny?
She's from the ABC.
Journalist, eh?
A pretend journalist for a sketch.
You hear that, Ron? A pretend journalist for a sketch. Probably from one of them smart-ass lefty news satire programmes.
Yeah, very funny. You wouldn't want anything to happen to your budget now, would you?
Reggie and Ron are from the PMO. Sometimes they come by for a bit of a chat.
Bit of a chat about this or that bit of legislation, sure.
Have you been pressuring Senator Hanson to support your Ensuring Integrity Bill?
Well, I don't know if we call it pressure. Would we, Bunny?
No pressure at all.
No, our little visits are more about explaining the delicate nuance of the legislation. Right, Ron?
Yeah, that's right. Delicate nuance.
What we want to prevent, you see, is unions using standover tactics and thuggery to compromise mum and dad small businesses. Do I make myself clear?
Yet the premise of this sketch is pretty obvious.
Good. Very glad to hear that. I wouldn't want the point to be missed, shall we say, over the sound of shattering glass. The last thing me and Ron want is to be heavy-handed, you see. Well, there's nothing worse than being hit over the head over and over and over again with the same comic leitmotif. Is there, Ron?
That's right.
Well, not coming up because black comedy's on in a minute.
PM's hands dirty from dangling carrots in marginal seats. And Tony Abbott's new book proves to be unusually popular.
Well, a final word, if I may, from SBS's Antoninus.
Antarctica has broken a second heat record in a matter of days, with temperatures rising above 20 degrees Celsius for the first time in recorded history.
Yes, it's an incredible feat, and congratulations must go to all involved. The oil, gas and coal industries, air travellers, arsonists, and let's not forget the cows. It shows just what can be achieved when we all work together towards a common goal. Goodbye.
Die, baby.